episode 430 of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Tonight I will be talking about the second episode of AEW Saturday Collision, which is the go-home night before show before All Elite Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Forbidden Door pay-per-view, right here, right now, 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Hey, Wrestling Fanatics. It's Saturday night, and you know what that means. The second episode of AEW Saturday Collision is now in the books. The go-home Collision episode before Forbidden Door tomorrow night live on pay-per-view. Gonna talk all about tonight's show. And without any further ado, let's get right into it. Tonight's second episode of Collision was live from Toronto, Ontario, Canada at the Scotiabank Arena. Our commentators tonight, Kevin Kelly and Nigel McGuinness, and just these two tonight, no Jim Ross. I talked about this earlier in the week, that good old JR is taking some time off due to that bad fall he had last week. And we start things off on Collision tonight with the legendary Tony Schiavone in the ring. And he's going to interview, or try to interview, Sting and Darby Allin to find out who their partner for the trios match tomorrow night is going to be. But before Sting and Darby come out, we hear Judas as Chris Jericho and one of his partners, Minoru Suzuki, come to the ring. And I should note that Jericho and Suzuki are making their way to the ring by themselves. No Sammy Guevara on Collision tonight, which kind of raised the question if he is really on the side of Jericho and Suzuki. And then we do eventually see Sting and Darby Allin make their way out, and Darby Allin cuts a pretty good promo here, mentioning Sammy Guevara and kind of saying that he hopes Sammy has smartened up and is no longer going to be with Jericho. And he says if he does show up and teams with Jericho and Suzuki, that he is going to kick his family-friendly show here on this podcast. And then this leads to the announcement of their partner. He says it's someone that kicked Jericho's A in the Tokyo Dome, and it is none other than Tetsuya Naito, and he gets a pretty big pop here in Toronto, which, yes, Jericho faced Naito in New Japan Pro Wrestling at the Tokyo Dome, and this is going to be a really good trios match, or at least I think so anyway. Not sure where they're going, what direction they're going in with Sammy Guevara. If they have him show up, will they have where he doesn't want to team with Jericho and Suzuki and they end up getting into it? I'm sure he will show up, but will he go along with them, or will he eventually maybe kind of turn against them, allowing Sting, Darby, and Naito to pick up the win in this trios match? But like I said, should be a very good match tomorrow night at Forbidden Door. And next up, speaking of Forbidden Door, we have one of the competitors that will be competing tomorrow night, Hiroshi Tanahashi, taking on Swerve Strickland. And I just want to say this, in my opinion, was a fantastic match. I think Swerve did a great job working in this one with Tanahashi, and definitely impressive by Swerve. He's been impressive as of late in the recent weeks, but definitely tonight did a great job in there with Tanahashi. Tanahashi gets the win in this one, though, defeating Swerve Strickland. And then we get on the screen the AEW World Champion, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF. And he pretty much says he wasn't going to go out there, waste on Tanahashi. And he says that he talked to Tony Khan and got their match to be first on Forbidden Door, so he can hurry up and get out of Toronto. And definitely needed some heel heat there in Toronto for MJF. I'm sure this will be a really good one. And do not see a title change happening though, but sure it'll be a really good match. But I'll talk more about my predictions tomorrow morning on the Sunday episode of Good Morning Wrestling Fans. I'll preview the whole card for Forbidden Door tomorrow night. So stay tuned for that tomorrow morning. And next up, honoring the House of Black, Brody King being accompanied by Julia Hart, taking on Andrade El Idolo after Idolo picked up the win in his return match to AEW last week, making Buddy Matthews submit to the figure 8. And another really good match here. I talked about last week how the match Andrade had with Buddy Matthews was a great match. This one was another really good one. Andrade and Brody King. I enjoyed this one anyway, and it looked like we were about to see the same result of last week's match. Andrade about to lock in the figure 8 and possibly make Brody King tap out. But at this time, Buddy Matthews runs into the ring attacking Andrade, causing a disqualification. Brody King and Buddy Matthews, a 2-on-1 attack on Andrade, and Julia Hart also gets in the ring. And then at this time, she holds up the mask of Andrade Idolo, and Malachi Black appears on the screen. And at this time, the lights go out as the heels leave Andrade Lane in the middle of the ring. Our next match here on Collision is women's action with the NJPW Strong Women's Champion Willow Nightingale taking on the native beast Nyla Rose. Very good match again here between these two, I thought, which Willow Nightingale picks up the win, defeating Nyla Rose. We see the Outcasts, all three of them, here tonight. Saraya, Toni Storm, and Ruby Soho, they attack both Willow Nightingale, or actually just Willow Nightingale, I should say, and then Sky Blue comes out to the ring with a steel chair to make the save for Willow. And Lexi Nair is in the back with the returning Scorpio Sky. Cuts a very good promo interview here. Definitely looking forward to seeing Scorpio Sky back in action here in AEW. Definitely very good talent. Also here on Collision, the main event, Bullet Club Gold, Switchblade Jay White and Juice Robinson, and the Guns, Austin and Colton Gunn, taking on CMFTR, CM Punk, and the AEW World Tag Team Champions, Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood. FTR teaming up with Absolute Ricky Starks. Great main event here. I love this match. Really good one. This trios match, definitely worth checking out in case you missed it. All six guys definitely put in a heck of an effort. Once again, a really good trios match. But I have to admit, I was kind of surprised with the finish. Was not as expecting the baby faces, CM Punk, FTR, Ricky Starks to go over in this one and get the win. But it was Jay White pinning Ricky Starks to get the win for his team. And maybe it was just me, but I was surprised with the finish to see Bullet Club Gold go over in this one. But they did, and they got the win, getting some momentum going into Forbidden Door. And once again, though, really good match. This one was a lot better than I thought it was going to be, which I didn't think it was going to be bad, but definitely better than I expected. Really good main event on this second episode of Collision. I know it's early, but I'd have to say so far Collision is 2 for 2. Really good episodes 2 weeks in a row. And if it keeps up like this, definitely gonna be must-see pro wrestling every Saturday night on TNT with AEW Collision. And that was the episode tonight. Heading into Forbidden Door. And to get into a little bit of news before I wrap up, this weekend Impact Wrestling is having TV tapings, the Summer Scissor shows in Atlanta at Center Stage, and I saw a report. I don't read spoilers, so I'm not going to get into it. I just saw the headline, so I'm not going to get too much into the tapings, but I did see that a former NWA World Tag Team Champion, primetime Elix Skipper, was present at the tapings, which, if you're a long-time TNA fan, you remember that Elix Skipper was actually a big part of the Wednesday night pay-per-views as a part of Triple X with the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels and Low Key, and had some really good matches in the X Division, even though he never actually had the X Division championship. Also, going back to Triple X, one of the best moments in TNA history was from Turning Point 2004, when him and Daniels had the first, or not the first, but they had a 6 Sides of Steel cage match with America's Most Wanted, where he went on top of the 6 Sides of Steel, walked the cage, and did a hurricanrana off the top of the cage. That, like I said, probably in TNA/Impact history, that is probably one of the top moments that they have. And that was a really good steel cage match as well. And also AEW referee Aubrey Edwards has retired after one match, the match last week where she teamed with Mark Briscoe and Papa Briscoe to defeat Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, and Karen Jarrett. So the in-ring wrestling career of Aubrey Edwards is over. So she's just going to be sticking to being the referee and co-host of the AEW Unrestricted podcast. I would say with Tony Schiavone, but it's been a while since he's been on. Alex Abrahantes has been filling in for him lately, but actually this past episode they kind of had a substitute for the substitute, where Will Washington filled in for Alex, and they previewed Forbidden Door with Rocky Romero, which is a good episode. Definitely recommend checking that out, AEW Restricted, in case you haven't heard that episode of the official podcast of All Elite Wrestling. And that is about all the news I have on this episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic for tonight. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Hope everyone has been having a great weekend so far. Hope you all enjoyed AEW Saturday Collision tonight. And, of course, Forbidden Door tomorrow, which I hope to have a special live episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic right after. And we'll be back tomorrow morning for the Sunday episode of GMWF, where I will preview tomorrow night's card. So don't want to miss that either. But until then, remember, you can like 360 Wrestling Podcast on Facebook, follow on Instagram, on Twitter. And if you have a company or a business you want to advertise, you can on 360 Wrestling Podcast. Just email me at 360wrestlingpodcast@gmail.com. And I hope we can work something out. I hope to do a good ad for you right here on 360 Wrestling Fanatic and Good Morning Wrestling fans. But once again, that's all for tonight, and I will talk to everyone tomorrow. But until then, I am Lance, and I am a wrestling fanatic.